All right. Welcome to my rapid reaction. Scarlet Faithful, Aaron Brightman coming to you a little bit after Rutgers 52-3 victory over Wagner on Saturday, September 30th, last day of the month. 4-1 on the season, first time since 2014. A few things wanted to touch on. Obviously, not the most compelling matchup in the world. I don't love that Rutgers still plays an FCS team, but I do get it. I do think the fifth week of the season, you'd like to be fully in the Big Ten play by now, but they already had, two Big Ten games. This is their last non-conference game. And it probably did come at a good time with the Michigan game last week. Huge stretch upcoming in October, which we'll touch on in a minute. And it was able to kind of, I don't want to say they started flat, but they were able to kind of get into the game a little slower. Wagner's definitely better than they were last year. You got to give those kids credit. A lot of Jersey kids on that team. I thought they played really hard. And, it was probably a good get healthy week, and you were able to get some young guys off the bench. Some freshmen got some run that they haven't going into the season so far. So certainly positives there. Rutgers took care of business at the end of the day. I mean, the yardage was over 400 yards of total offense, and they held Wagner to, 106 yards total. So, Wagner got that 67-yard kick return, 437 to 106. Wagner had a 67-yard kickoff return, which was a problem on the special teams, and Wagner got a field goal out of it. They did miss another field goal, but the defense was dominant, as they should be, but they, truly were the entire game, and got some sacks early. Aaron Lewis was a beast. Motoré, can we just talk about Motoré for a minute? I mean, he is unbelievable. I mean, he is really good. If he's not on an all Big Ten team, if he keeps this up, if he's on an all Big Ten team at the end of the season, it's a crime. Aaron Lewis has been fantastic. He's really turned it on the last couple of weeks. But Motoré has just, what a beast all season, coming off of missing last year with the torn ACL. Obviously, it happened in spring, so he's had some extra time to recover. But, unbelievable. He is so key for this team moving forward. And it was, good to see the defense dominate. Offensively, Gavin Wimsatt, he rushed for 2 touchdowns. He was fairly accurate. He missed a couple. Listen, he's still developing, and he did connect on that big pass to Jaquay Jackson, and he had a couple, nice and kind of intermediate passes. Dremel, continues to be just a great story at wide receiver for Rutgers. Jackson, obviously the deep threat. Both of them played well. I never agree with coaches, and they had Wimsatt out there in the fourth quarter, and I don't understand it. I know coaches do it all the time. Obviously, they're prioritizing reps, but I just thought with the October month that's coming, I don't know, having the first team offense out there, I don't love it. But you want to get them reps, fine. They did have that deep ball to Jackson late in the game, up 38-3. I didn't think it was necessary, but at the end of the day, the running backs, good rotation there. You saw a lot of guys get action. Manungai had 87 yards. He had the most reps and, was the first team reps, obviously. But you had Brown, Young, and Jashawn Benjamin all got a lot of carries, 7 and 9 about of each. So that was good. I thought that offensively, the offensive line dominated at times where they should have. The receivers, this is what I want to touch on. Yeah, Ian Strong had a catch for 17, but you had Fama Toure, first catch ever, 13 yards. Dylan Braithwaite, 10 yards, first ever. Jesse O'Fury, first ever, 7 yards. So those are 3 freshmen aside from Strong that all had catches. So that bodes well for the future. And that's something to be excited about. And then Sean Bowman also, he had a touchdown call back, or, might have been down at the 1. But he had a big catch used in a way that I thought he would have been all year, that he hasn't really. But he had a catch as well. So good for all those guys. Defensively, I just want to see who got some stats that hasn't in the past. You had Timmy Ward had 2 tackles. Obviously a great story for Rutgers. Hinspeter had 2 tackles. Wright had a tackle. Fuse had a tackle. Carnell Davis had a tackle. Amankwa had a tackle. Yeboah Cody had a tackle. Lasardi had a tackle. Angoy, Sean Griffin. So all guys that, some special teams guys, some guys that don't get a ton of run on D. So it was great to see guys get opportunities. But overall, they played relatively clean football, and that's really the biggest thing you want in a game like this. Obviously, it took care of business, but zero turnovers once again. And going back to Wimsatt in a little bit of a long-winded point is that he's got one turnover in 5 games, and yes, he's a little inconsistent. He's a little inaccurate still on the plus 10-yard pass attempts. But at the end of the day, you have a guy that is still developing, still getting better, and he's only turned it over once. He's not at the point where, he's still trying to conquer that interception demon. And Shiraka deserves a ton of credit with Wimsatt in both of them being in sync and him being disciplined enough to take care of the football. And moving forward now into October, that's a huge key. It's got to continue, obviously, but 5 games, pretty consistent in terms of, not turning the ball over, not having, he's had a few risky passes, but nothing crazy in terms of the amount, right? It's still single digits in terms of the actual bad passes that could have been turned over. Yes, he had a few early on, but he's gotten better with it. He's got a command of the offense. He's playing with confidence. He's running the football well. There's a lot of things to like there. Reggie Sutton back. Great to see him in the fourth quarter. Serious injury 2 years ago. So much that, they thought not only was his career over, but they thought maybe he had life repercussions with the injury in terms of his leg. And he's back on the football field today, first game action. So that was great to see. He played left tackle late in the game. 1976 team honored at halftime. I joke that you had the 1976 Final Four team for basketball. You had the undefeated 1976 football team. And then I was born, and Rutgers didn't achieve any of those ever again. So you can blame me if you want, but it was great that Rutgers honored the 1976 team. Was the Hall of Fame class this weekend. So great to see them back. Over 50 players, I think, were back, which is really cool. They were honored at halftime. So certainly some feel-good, stories today with Sutton, with the freshman, with the 76 team. Overall, Rutgers took care of business, and now we're at a point where you always hope they would be. We wanted them to be 4-1 going into October, and they are. And I think that things are probably more wide open than we had thought going into the month. Wisconsin, they're on a bye week this week, so they have 2 weeks to prepare for Rutgers, but have not been dominant by any means. Obviously, it's Luke Fickell's first season. They're going to be tough. It's going to be a very tough game. But it's going to be exciting, too, because Rutgers has a chance. They have a legit chance to go into Camp Randall and win. I'm not saying they will. They're not going to be favored. But if they play disciplined football, if they can run the football, if Wimsatt can make some plays, if the defense can play the way we think they can, they can win. It's the first time that I've ever felt that they could beat Wisconsin. And they've had some poor performances against Wisconsin in the past. So, again, not favored, not expected, but they have a legit chance. And that's saying something. I don't think going into the season, I know there was, and I'm sorry, there was one reader that was all over me for not giving them a chance at Wisconsin or not thinking that that's a game they should win. And he's right. He's right now. Michigan State, we know what that is. We don't even know what their roster is going to be in 2 weeks from now. They're playing Iowa tonight, right now. One of their collectives pulled a bunch of contracts of football players last night. The redshirt rule, they're at 4 games. The transfer portal is open for them without penalty for the next 30 days. So Michigan State the floodgates could open in the next week or so, and Rutgers could be facing an even, more depleted roster. I think that Rutgers was better than Michigan State so far this year for obvious reasons. But if they come in losing a lot of key guys, obviously that's a favorable situation. But regardless, Rutgers has to win that game. You have to win that game now. This is an opportunity. And if you do, even if you lose Wisconsin, you're 5-2. And then you go to Indiana. Indiana got trounced today by Maryland. The Indiana game, listen, I just have a feeling they're going to play up for Rutgers. I don't know. Their defense is not bad. Their offense has struggled. But that's not an easy game by any stretch, and getting that 6th win when you have that opportunity, that's you go through stuff. That's going to be a game they're going to go through. And I don't think it's going to be easy. But if you beat Michigan State, you're at 5 wins. And then you go into November with a chance no matter what. But if they can be 6-2 going into the bye week before Halloween, it would be an unbelievable story and an opportunity to get to 7 wins in November. And we'll see. We'll see. But the bottom line is we're 4-1 end of September. Rutgers done everything we've wanted them to do. Wimsatt looks improved. The defense looks legit. The running backs have been strong. The offensive line, it's a work in progress, but you have to give Pat Flaherty a lot of credit. I think that offensive line, Scott Vallone too, and whoever else works in the offensive line, they're holding it together. And I think all those kids deserve credit. How they hold up this next stretch is huge. Wide receivers have come along a little bit. Dremel's been a great surprise. He's been fantastic. Jackson is as advertised in terms of his big playability. You like to see him be a little more consistent, maybe. Ian Strong, you'd like to see worked in a little bit. They're still without Long and Brantley, so overall, you have to be pretty happy, I think. The team's committed. They're blocking for one another. The defense is still swarming the ball. Didn't get any takeaways today. Wagner did have almost 2 turnovers a game coming in. That's my big question. I had it with David Anderson this week talking about, can the Rutgers defense be disruptive enough to force turnovers in this next stretch against Big Ten competition? I think it's going to be key for the offense. You got to give the offense some short fields. I think it's going to be huge for them. Not that the offense can't produce drives against the next 3 opponents, but if the defense can force turnovers, it'd be a big plus. And I think that's the next step for this defense. If they're really, are they a top 5 defense in the Big Ten? If they are, they're going to force multiple turnovers in each of the next 3 games, I think. I know that's not the only way to judge it, of course. I mean, they were dominant over Wagner today. They didn't force a turnover. But in Big Ten play, I think you got to get some. So we'll see. Special teams, mixed bag. Great to see Rashad Rochelle have that 89-yard return, set up the touchdown at second half. Great tone setter. Big for him. Has had some trouble, returning punts in terms of holding on to it. Had a fumble, botched another one. So great to see him have a big return. They did allow that 67-yard return, which was a problem. Coverage, Jude McAtammy's had trouble with touchbacks lately. Not nearly as efficient as he was early on in the season. And then you had that short kick. I don't know what that was. That was just weird. So special teams, a little suspect today. A little bit of a question mark there. Can't have, big mistakes in Big Ten play if you want to win. So all in all, positive day, positive start. 4-1, first time since 2014. The last time they had a winning season. So, and went to a bowl game aside from the Gator Bowl, which was COVID related. Still counts, but would be great to see this team get to 6 and 7 wins. We'll see what happens, but they're certainly set up, and I just like where their heads are at. And I think this team is tight. I think they have great leadership. I think they're well coached. I'm optimistic for sure. So stay tuned for all my coverage at thescarletfaithful.com, and hope me to October. Get to October 4-1. Here they are, and let's see what they can do. Big week coming up with Wisconsin, and it's a great opportunity for this team, and I want to see them play well because I think they can. I think they can go in there and win. It's not going to be easy. They're going to have to play their best game of the season, but it's certainly on the table. And then, regardless of what happens there, you got Michigan State and Indiana. This team has done everything they've been asked of to be put in this position. Now it's their opportunity to seize it, and I really hope they do. Thanks for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again, and I'll talk to you soon.